Welcome to Pardon the Eruption. I'm Hunter the Infected, and I'm here with Ace Trainer Josh. This is the first ever episode of this new show, taking inspiration from ESPN's Pardon the Interruption. For today, we'll be talking about the auction for DPL Season 6 and how we think the rest of the season will go. Now that we see the full rosters, tell me, Josh, who is the best post-auction team?
Thanks for the introduction. This is Ace Trainer Josh, and for the best team, I have to go with the Wings of Wrath, head coached by Rye and High Jump Sean. And the reason why I'm going for this, despite the team being very top heavy, is because they have a bunch of players who I feel are just bona fide winners. And you may be wondering what I mean by that. I'll try to pull up percentages for people who are watching if I feel it's relevant, but percentages don't mean everything. But for the situation, I'm going to go with Rye, who has a 60% win rate. Then there's a 71.43% win rate from Hamada, 57% from K Crick. You have an 80% win rate from was it Devin?
Yeah.
No, Astro J. I'm sorry.
Oh.
And then Astro J has an 80% win rate. 67% win rate from Devin, and then even Imo, who went for 5K, has a 63.64% win rate. So they have a bunch of players who have relatively set their mark in the league as people who win quite often and are pretty consistent. And consistency is what you kind of want in this type of league where almost anything can happen. So for Rye and Sean to pick up a list of players who are pretty consistent in winning and are pretty good players, in my opinion, I think kind of sets them apart from the rest of the teams, even if they don't have a lot of players.
Yeah, I dig that. I actually had them as like my second team. For me, though, I have Noble Victory, your very own team, as the best post-auction team. Now, there are some issues regarding Hiker Toad and Genius X, or Zing, or whatever they call them, with activity-wise, and I do kind of see that as that might be an issue. But if they play well, if they play at their potential, or if they're active, plus if you go back to your roots of when you were good, Sharky as well, and then AM22 or Toxic, they can run either one. Then you guys have Troy, which went for 9K. I think this team has the potential. I think this team has the highest ceiling of all the post-auction teams. But it just ends up depending on how well the ceiling goes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can kind of see how we have multifactorial issues in terms of how higher ceiling can go, but I do see what you're saying, especially with our big question marks in activity. So,
all right, now for the next question, Josh, who is the worst post-auction team? Go.
Okay, so for this one, I obviously hate to label a team as the worst because that could be quite subjective, but I am going to give it to the Hungry Men led by Zern and Max. I do know Max was recently a coach for a championship winning team a couple of seasons ago with Tang Gang. Once again, a coach, but this time with Zern instead of Vino.
Hold on. You can't call him a coach of that team. He was not a coach. He was a presence. That was not even a presence.
Okay, you would know better than me, but hey, you can talk your shit, bro. But nonetheless, with this team, the reason why I rate them so low is because you look at their team and they have Zern, who the reason why I mentioned stats don't mean everything is because he actually has a pretty fucking terrible record. He's 11-17, I think. But if you look back at a lot of his losses, they're like really close losses or like really bullshit losses. So
Yeah.
I don't exactly blame him for that. He's a lot better than his record shows. In fact, I think he's pretty damn good because I've teamed with him before and his insight's pretty good.
He hacks me one time, so I don't really like him.
Okay. Anyways, there's Zern, and then they have 100P, who, in my opinion, is one of the best players and that you could possibly have at the pool of players.
Well, that's not just your opinion.
Yeah, I coached. I didn't coach with him. I was in his team last season, and in Sword and Shield, not only did I think he went undefeated, but he
lost the last week or something.
Yeah, I think he was like pretty much memeing I think he had score finals and he was kind of memeing. Either way, he's pretty damn good. Most people agree. But outside of Zern and 100P, you have a lot of question marks. You have Glop at 16K. I really don't think he's that good from what I've seen. And then you do have some guy named Nerf who went for 22K. Some guy named Nicholas who went for 11.5K. I'm not calling these guys out as bad. Don't get me wrong, but there's just too many question marks with these guys as we haven't seen their performances in draft,
Dude.
at least in DPL specifically.
No, dude.
And
You want to talk about a team
yeah,
full of question marks? It's Danger Zone. I think they're the worst post auction team. They went 40K on Finchinator. This guy is not going to win 4 games a week for you guys. Then you guys, your next up is 18K TCMTL. I don't think he choked, but he lost in the tiebreaker. I think this team is weak overall with like 2 good players at the top. But I'm gonna. But on that note, I will say something about this team in a minute. Now,
okay.
moving on to the next question. Here's what I mean. The what core for a specific tier is the best, and I'll start. And
Okay.
I was just talking trash on Danger Zone with Finch and all that, but I do think they have the best Sword and Shield core between Finchinator, TCMTL, and Harris. I think that's a really strong Sword and Shield core to have. TCMTL proved in last season he can win a bunch of Sword and Shield games. Finchinator is obviously one of like the better players in the pool, like a battle wise and probably prep wise. I actually don't know what his prep or draft situation is. And then Harris, he's had his ups and downs. I think he had more of an up recently. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. But I think
Yeah.
he's been doing better than not doing better. But yeah, I do think that's a really strong Sword and Shield core. I don't know what Sword and Shield core outside of that can compete with them. Maybe like K-Crick, Ryan, Sablo or something. But yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I also speaking of teams, I also did team up with Finchinator last season. His prep is pretty linear, but he's really malleable in terms of constructive criticism, which is good for a player of his status, honestly. So if they can get some pretty creative ideas to Finch, just give him the tools,
Hold
and
on.
he can play the game
Hey,
pretty good.
can you define the word malleable for like the Sharky Kings out there?
Oh, of course. Basically, they have an open mind. Speaking of Sharky, they have an open mind for different ideas and things, and they're able to, they're able to differ from just their sets and their ideas as the only things they can go with. But anyway, speaking of the same question, I'm actually going to give it to Trick of Eye and speak of the fucking devil. It's going to be because of IA and Hunter Z Infected, and the
Yes,
reason why I say
sir.
it
Yes, sir. You
is
know it.
because notably in the last couple of seasons, they both have been incredibly dominant in the Sun and Moon tier, which, in my opinion, is pretty split between Auras as like the 2 most hated and unwanted tiers to play.
Bro, there's
But I
only
think they're
3 tiers. How can you say that when there's only 3 tiers?
well, a lot of people don't like Auras, and a lot of people don't like Sun and Moon. I think it's pretty split.
Bro,
I think it might be a little more towards Sun and Moon, though,
I
if I
don't
had
think
to
anyone
guess.
likes this game in general. Let's be real.
That's true. We just play this game for like the fame because there's no bitches, no money, no anything to this. But anyways, the reason why I say this is because in fact, and over the last day, IA and Hunters Infected have an average win rate of about 65.55%, but respectively, IA has a 70% win rate, Hunters Infected 61.
All
So
right. All
I go
right.
back to I
All
go back to
right.
I go back to consistency and something I mentioned earlier. If you're able to win consistently in a level of competition as high as this, then you're automatically a way more valuable player than like probably 90% of the pool. And these 2 players have proved time and time again, especially in situations where a win is absolutely necessary. Shout out to Hunter versus Gypsy last season. They get the W and they get the
Whatever.
job done. So in a tier such as Sun and Moon, where
Okay,
it can make or
time's
break a
up. You're
series,
out of time, Josh.
it's the best one.
Yes. Okay, great. You made your point. Now, for a special segment, we're moving on to Word Turtle. We'll be using one word to answer the following questions, which will explain why we use that word. So are you ready, Josh?
So I'm ready, sir.
All right, first, don't call me sir. First Word Turtle question is, what word would you use to describe the prices of the auction? Go.
Okay, so lead it off. I'm going to start off with the word oscillating,
Okay.
and for the Sharky Kings out there,
Yes, yes.
for the Sharky Kings out there, it means to go like pretty much up and down. Like it's really there is no really in between. It's either really high or really low. And the reason why I say this is because I don't
Ooh.
know if there's going to be a visual of all the like the picks and the prices. If there isn't, then I'll just try to explain it pretty well. Most teams they went for players like well above 20K, maybe a few between like 15 and 20K. And outside of those numbers, it drops dramatically to like 5, 6K at the most. And this
Yeah.
goes for a lot of teams, especially teams that aren't as top heavy and have like a full loaded roster. You have a lot of players who unfortunately hit that skewed number of a really high value of like 20, 30K. And then you have a lot of players who could be question marks at 5K who might not really perform their full weight. And I kind of mentioned back in the earlier portion that uh, Rye has a really top heavy team, and top heavy isn't necessarily so bad because you're able to have a pretty balanced
So
number.
what word exactly did you use again? What was that
I
exact word?
use oscillating was my
Oscillating.
word.
The word I used
Yes.
was in line with that. I used inflated. I think there was a lot of, and I mean a lot of overpays. I think Finchinator was an overpay. I think um, Zing Genius X was an overpay. I think K Crick was an overpay. 100p was an overpay. Glop was an overpay. Pyro, Ian. There's a bunch of overpays, and I don't know why. I think like prices just got inflated off of just like the quality of players. Because when you look at like all the 5Ks, the lower end players, there's a lot of them that are like of lower quality or even unknown factors, and so that's what I personally think contributed to the inflation, as well as just people being overrated farther than like they should have been.
Yeah, I can agree with that, especially to the extent of just wanting
Yep.
some like pretty decent players on your roster. You'll go for a higher number than you're probably expected to.
All right, next word, Turtle. What word would you use to describe the captain course this season?
Okay, going to a more simple word. I'm just gonna go with the word new. And the reason why I say this is because the coaching cores, although they have some pretty recognizable people, and it's not really any coaching cores that we've seen previously. For example, we have Vesuvius, and Legits.
Well,
We have
King
the
L5 and Money Guy.
Yeah, that's the only I think repeating captain core in the
Was
history of
wasn't
DPL.
Ryan and Sean were captain core? No,
Was it last year that they were as
last season.
well?
I don't remember.
I think they might have been, but I don't think they were either. They might have been though. But outside of that, I think we have different combination of
Yeah,
coaches.
different combos. Yeah, but like some of
Yeah,
them, most of them were like coaches in previous
yeah,
season. Like
yeah. Some people
Harris and Vino, they were never a duo, but they were both coaches. I think.
they were both coaches. Yeah, Zern. I actually don't know if Zern was a coach. I don't think he was, but Max was a coach, obviously in the past. Uh, But yeah, IA and Skyhorse being coach is a very interesting combo. I think that has a lot of potential. And Vets and Legits, typically as players, they don't really maximize their potential, unfortunately. But I feel like as coaches, I think they can definitely put their creativity out there. So they have
Yeah,
some good opportunities there, in my opinion.
I think you were a little nice with the word you used. New. I'm gonna say weaker compared, especially compared to last season. Last season we had II and Illusion. We had Zazo and Maddie. We had Narth and Rob Jr. Well, I don't know about that one. K Crick and John W. Also can confirm Sean and Rye were a duo last season.
Okay, cool.
Kaz and Draw 15, both of which are missing from this season. I think the cores are significantly weaker compared to last season, both battle wise and activity wise.
Yeah, I think the player pool and the coaches have definitely gotten a little weaker in the last season. So I
Yeah, there's
kind of
a
agree with
lot
that.
of notable names that just weren't included for multiple reasons, I bet. But
Yeah, of course.
yeah, so next word turtle is going to be what word would you use to describe the team you were drafted on?
Okay, so this one I found pretty fun. Obviously, we want to approach this in the most non-biased way possible, but I chose the word spunky, and the reason why I say this is because we have some very interesting narratives on our team. Obviously, we have a guy who just putting it out there said some pretty homophobic shit, right? And he's trying to make it. He's trying to make his comeback, and he went for a pretty good number. And at the end of the day, the guy can play Pokemon pretty good, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. We have Zing and Hacker Toad. If they're able to keep their activity up and keep their play up, then obviously they can play with a chip on their shoulders, perhaps give us some pretty good W's. AM22, I feel like is always on that teeter totter of like really really good player and like mid. So I think he's got something to prove as well, especially as a coach. And Toxic, who I still feel is pretty hungry for victory. Not to mention myself. And then we have players like Troy, who unfortunately had a pretty controversial ending to his career last time he was here.
Well,
But I feel like now he can
clearly
become
it's not the end of his career
absolutely not, and I hope he comes
because he's
back.
here.
Yeah.
So you said
What about you,
spunky?
bro?
You said spunky?
Yes,
I'm
Spunky. Yes.
I'm gonna say for Trick of Eye, champions. Here, let me tell you what. For one, Trick of Eye just won last season. They're the reigning champs. And then we're being led by II, a certified champion, and Skyhorse. I don't know if he's a certified champion, but he's a certified clutch game 7er. Aki has been on champion level teams, aka Mount Rushmore last season and Mount Rushmore every season ever. I have won both in DPL and in Clash Cock, whatever. Shadow was on Tangang with me in DPL. Ice was on Porygon Squad with me. I don't know what else he's been on. But yeah, we're just a team of champions. Plus, we got this BBEEAA guy who went for almost 30k, ridiculous number. He probably is a champion for going for that price while being unknown. At the same time, Smogon Goon. So yeah, that's word was champions. So
I don't know, bro. You have Shadow, Ice, Hopeless, and a guy named Zukubo Royale. I don't know about that one, unfortunately, bro.
They're all champions. They're all champions. Now then, time's up with that. Now time for our lightning round questions. Quick answers and explanations. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Overrated player.
I'm going to have to give it to GCS, unfortunately. I teamed up with him, and no, I don't mean to talk shit on the guy, but he just, in my opinion, was not that good. I feel like
mean to talk.
I feel like 13.5k was way too much. I feel like he's at most a 6k player.
Most overrated player, I think, is Pyronox. 22.5k. I think he is just barely above average. I don't think he's worth 22.5k. And I think he's even coming off a bad season. All right.
I believe he is.
Next, underrated player. Go.
I mentioned him earlier. I'm going to give it to Imo. In 11 games played, they have a 63.64% win rate, and they only went for 5k. What he didn't go for anymore actually surprises me, to be honest with you. And I'm going to give it to that reason. I'm going to give it to that person for that reason.
Yeah, I respect that one. I have... he's not a player, but a captain. Money guy. Now, he's probably not going to play much, but I think he's more... I think he's a better player than people think. I didn't know how good he was until I saw him play, I think, on Tangang. And I was like, wow, you know what? I really want to see Money Guy win games. And he's just fun to watch as well, even though he's, not active. He might be mute or something. I don't know. So yeah, next question. Who do you think is an undrafted gem that has a good chance of being picked up at mids?
Okay, so if there's any captains listening to this, I feel like you should reference me, but I'm going to give it to Gaiman. He has a 3-1 record in Auras, and from my experience teaming up with him, he's a really good chat presence. He gives really good ideas, and he's a pretty good mocker. So if there's ever a point in the season where I feel like a team is really lacking in the Auras section, I feel like Gaiman is a very valuable pickup.
Yeah, I respect that one. I have Spoink. Next question. Best logo. Best logo.
All right. The best logo, I'm going to have to give it to the Wings of Wrath. I personally love Attack on Titan. I know Sean and Rye both love Attack on Titan as well, so I got to shout out my boys on that one. I think the logo is just great, and I do like Galarian Moltres as a Pokemon, so
yeah, I
got to give it to him.
I have Trick of Eye as best logo. I think the Coco with the Warhammer is pretty cool. Worst logo.
I got to give this one to the old heads just because it's got absolutely nothing to do with Pokemon, and it's literally just Popeye with a fucking cigar and a gold chain. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but I just think it's not necessarily fitting. Although I think our logo is definitely second worst, but
yeah, I have worst logo, Hungry Men. I think it's an awful logo. You can't just throw trash together and be like, haha, it's a funny meme logo. No, you're trash. Don't disguise it otherwise. All right, final question real quick. What 4 teams do you see making playoffs?
Okay, so this question is kind of just which 3 teams and yourself do you think make the playoffs? So I'm going to answer it. As such, I got Noble Victory. I'm going to also have Trick of Eye for the similar reasons I listed making the playoffs as well. I got the Wings of Wrath, the best drafted team making into the playoffs. And then my 4th one, I'm going to give it to the Ghosted Major, just coached by the Flying Bird and Blitz.
Okay, so I agree on 3 of the 4. I have Noble Victory, Trick of Eye, Wings of Wrath, and then for my 4th team, I have Wigglytuff's Guild. I think that's a strong team with a strong captain core.
I respect that pick a lot too. I think they're also probably really close to my 4th best as well.
Well, that's all we got for today. Join us in 2 weeks when we talk about the results of Week 1 and we figure out which teams are already doomed to start the season.